So, you think your pocket change is complicated? Imagine a time and place where your wallet was basically a chaotic international coin collection. That was Singapore, long before it became the gleaming, super-efficient nation we know today. Before 1965, the island was a bustling, trading hub, a crossroads of empires, which sounds very grand, but in practical terms, it meant that figuring out what money to use was an absolute nightmare. It was less a structured monetary system, and more a financial free-for-all. You had coins from all over the world just jangling around, each one telling a tiny story of trade, colonialism, and someone somewhere needing to buy a fish. Let's start with the really old stuff. We're talking about Chinese cash coins, those round ones with the square hole in the middle. They were circulating in the region for centuries. Think about that. These coins were so common that they were sometimes strung together in sets of 1,000. That's right, you'd carry your money around like a massive, clanking necklace of financial responsibility. Then came the Europeans, because of course they did. The Dutch, the Portuguese, the Spanish, they all showed up with their ships, their guns, and yes, their coins. You could find Spanish silver dollars, the famous pieces of 8 you've heard about in pirate movies, being used to buy spices and textiles right there in Singapore. It was a monetary melting pot, or maybe more of a monetary mosh pit. The British, being the British, eventually decided to bring some order to this chaos, mostly by introducing their own chaos. When Sir Stamford Raffles established Singapore as a British trading post in 1819, the situation didn't exactly simplify overnight. For a while, the Indian rupee was the official currency, because the British East India Company was running the show. So you had local merchants, Chinese traders, and European sailors all trying to figure out exchange rates between Spanish dollars, Indian rupees, and Dutch guilders. It's the kind of complex math problem that would make your high school algebra teacher weep. It was a system held together by trust, quick calculations, and probably a healthy dose of arguing. This whole period is a fantastic reminder that money is just a shared agreement. We all just agree that this piece of metal is worth a certain amount of stuff. But in old Singapore, that agreement was constantly being renegotiated on the fly. A coin's value wasn't just what was stamped on it. It was about the purity of its silver, its weight, and who was willing to accept it that day. It was a truly globalized financial system before globalization was even a buzzword. It was messy, it was confusing, and frankly, it sounds exhausting. You'd need a calculator, a history book, and a metallurgist just to go buy lunch. So, why was Singapore's currency situation such a glorious mess for so long? The answer is simple: trade. Singapore wasn't built to be a quiet, self-contained village. It was designed from the ground up to be a global marketplace. It was the 19th century equivalent of an Amazon fulfillment center, but for the entire world, and with more tropical diseases. Ships from China, India, the Arabian Peninsula, and Europe all converged on this tiny island. And when people from different places come to trade, they bring their own money. It's just what you do. You don't show up to a potluck empty-handed, and you don't show up to a global port without your local currency. The British tried to standardize things, bless their hearts. They established the Straits Settlements in 1826, which included Singapore, Penang, and Malacca. And with a new administrative unit came a new currency, the Straits dollar. This was a big step. Finally, a single, unified currency for the region. Except, it wasn't that simple. Old habits die hard, especially when those habits involve money. The Spanish silver dollar was so trusted and widely used that it continued to circulate alongside the new Straits dollar for decades. People just liked it more. It was the brand name, the Coca-Cola of 19th century silver coins, and the new Straits dollar was, for a while, the generic store brand. Then came the 20th century, which brought with it, as it tends to do, more complications. The British created a Board of Commissioners of Currency for Malaya, which issued currency for Singapore and the Malay Peninsula. This was the Malayan dollar, also known as the banana money, during the Japanese occupation in World War II, a name it got because of the banana trees printed on the $10 notes. This occupation currency was famously worthless after the war. A brutal lesson in how quickly the shared agreement of money can fall apart when the authority issuing it is, to put it mildly, not very popular. After the war, the British returned, and so did the Malayan dollar, this time with a bit more stability. So, to recap the journey before 1965, We went from a random assortment of international coins, to a mix of Spanish dollars and Indian rupees, to the Straits dollar coexisting with Spanish dollars, to the Malayan dollar, to the worthless Japanese occupation currency, and then back to the Malayan dollar. It's a dizzying history that perfectly reflects the island's own story, a constant churn of influences, powers, and economic forces. It's no wonder that when Singapore finally got the chance to make its own money, it was a profoundly significant moment. It was a chance to finally create something simple, stable, and uniquely Singaporean. Imagine going through a very messy, very public breakup. That was Singapore in 1965. After a brief and rocky 2-year merger with Malaysia, Singapore was expelled and suddenly found itself an independent nation. This was not the plan. It was like being kicked out of your parents' house, with no job, no savings, and the whole world watching, expecting you to fail. One of the first, most urgent tasks for this brand new, terrified country was to create its own currency. Because a country without its own money is like a superhero without a costume. It just doesn't look the part, and no one takes it seriously. For a short period after the split, Singapore, Malaysia, and Brunei continued to use a common currency, the Malayan and British Borneo dollar. This was managed by a joint currency board. But this was an awkward arrangement, like having to share a Netflix account with your ex. It was functional, but uncomfortable, and everyone knew it couldn't last. Negotiations to keep the common currency failed in 1966. So, on June 12, 1967, Singapore took a deep breath and launched its very own currency, the Singapore dollar. This wasn't just about printing notes and minting coins, it was a powerful declaration of sovereignty. It was Singapore telling the world, we are here. We are on our own. And this is our money. The newly formed Board of Commissioners of Currency Singapore was tasked with this monumental job. Their first priority was stability. After decades of monetary mayhem, the people needed to trust this new money. To achieve this, the Singapore dollar was pegged to the British pound sterling at a fixed rate. More importantly, the Currency Act of 1967 guaranteed that every single Singapore dollar issued was fully backed by foreign assets, like gold and foreign currency. This was a huge deal. It meant the government couldn't just print money whenever it felt like it. It was a promise of fiscal discipline, a signal to both its citizens and the world that Singapore was going to be responsible. For Americans, this might seem a bit strange. The US dollar hasn't been backed by gold since 1971, but for a tiny new nation with no natural resources, this 100% backing was its greatest asset. It was a gimmick, yes, but a brilliant one. It created instant confidence. People knew their money was worth something tangible. This foundation of trust established right at the beginning is a key reason why the Singapore dollar became, and remains, one of the most stable and respected currencies in the world. It's a classic Singaporean story. Faced with a crisis, respond with meticulous planning and an unbreakable promise. When Singapore finally minted its own coins in 1967, it didn't choose to put politicians or dead presidents on them. That would be too predictable, too normal. Instead, it put animals on them, a whole zoo's worth of local wildlife. This was the first series of Singaporean coins, often called the Sea Life series, and it was a brilliant piece of nation building. At a time when the country was trying to forge a national identity from a diverse population of immigrants, these coins gave everyone something shared and neutral to look at. They weren't Chinese, Malay, or Indian symbols. They were symbols of the natural world surrounding their island home. The series consisted of 6 denominations: 1, 5, 10, 20, and 50 cents, plus a hefty $1 coin. Each coin featured a different creature on one side and the Singapore coat of arms on the other, along with the year and the word Singapore in the country's 4 official languages: English, Malay, Mandarin, and Tamil. This multilingual feature was, and still is, a fundamental aspect of Singaporean currency. It's a constant metallic reminder of the nation's multicultural fabric. The designs were simple, clean, and elegant, created by a local artist named Christopher Ironside. They were designed to be easily recognizable, even for a population with varying levels of literacy. The materials used were pretty standard for the time. The lower denomination coins, the 1 and 5 cents, were made of bronze and aluminum bronze respectively. The 10, 20, and 50 cent coins were made of a cupro nickel alloy, giving them a familiar silver-like appearance. The $1 coin was also cupro nickel and was a big, satisfyingly chunky piece of metal. It featured a stylized lion, a symbol of Singapore, from its name Singapura, or Lion City. This series remained in circulation for nearly 2 decades, becoming a familiar part of daily life for an entire generation of Singaporeans who were growing up alongside their new country. For an American audience, it's interesting to think about the contrast. American coins are filled with historical figures and national symbols, like eagles and torches, icons of power and history. Singapore's first coins were about nature and harmony. It reflected a different national priority, not just celebrating a past, but building a future based on the shared environment. It was a subtle but powerful message. Every time someone paid for a bowl of noodles or a bus ticket, they held a small piece of this new national identity in their hand, a seahorse, a fish, or a bird. It was a gentle, daily lesson in what it meant to be Singaporean. Let's dive deeper into this pocket-sized zoo, because honestly, the specific choices of animals on Singapore's first coins are just fascinating. The smallest coin, the 1-cent piece, had a very abstract design. It was actually meant to represent a public housing apartment building, with a fountain in front. This was an incredibly clever choice. You see, in the 1960s, Singapore was right in the middle of a massive public housing construction boom, moving people from crowded slums into modern high-rises. Putting this image on the lowest value coin was a way of embedding this core national project into the very fabric of daily life. It was a symbol of progress, available for just 1 cent. The 5-cent coin showcased a fiddler crab, a humble common creature found along the coasts of the island. The 10-cent coin featured a seahorse, a delicate and unique animal that really speaks to the marine biodiversity of the region. Then we get to the 20-cent coin, which displayed a swordfish. A dynamic, powerful fish, perhaps hinting at the country's own growing economic strength. The 50-cent coin was my personal favorite. The lionfish. It's a beautiful, elegant, and venomous creature. A perfect, if perhaps unintentional metaphor for Singapore itself. Small, attractive, and you probably shouldn't mess with it. These weren't just random animals. They were a curated collection representing the island's marine heritage. The big boy of the series was the $1 coin. It didn't feature a real animal but a mythical one, the merlion. Wait, no, that's not right. The merlion came later. The first $1 coin featured a stylized lion symbol in the center, surrounded by a decorative border. This lion was a direct reference to the Lion City legend. The story goes that a Sumatran prince landed on the island, saw a majestic beast he thought was a lion, and named the place Singapura. It's a great story, even if biologists are pretty sure he probably saw a Malayan tiger, but Tiger City just doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? So, the lion stuck. One of the most surprising things for an American to learn is how long these coins lasted. This series was used from 1967 all the way to 1985. In that time, the United States went through the end of silver coinage and the introduction of the Eisenhower, Susan B. Anthony, and Sacagawea dollars, with plenty of design tweaks along the way. Singapore, on the other hand, stuck with its original designs for 18 years. This consistency provided a sense of stability and familiarity during a period of rapid economic and social change. The coins remained a constant, comforting presence in the pockets of a nation that was transforming at breathtaking speed. After nearly 2 decades of sea creatures, Singapore decided it was time for a change. In 1985, the country launched its second series of coins. If the first series was a tribute to the sea, the second was a tribute to the sky and the garden. The theme this time was flora, featuring local flowers and plants. This was another masterstroke of design. Singapore was actively promoting its Garden City vision at the time, a campaign to transform the dense urban island into a lush, green metropolis. What better way to reinforce that message than by putting flowers on the money? It was propaganda you could spend. The new series kept the same denominations but with some significant changes. The coins were smaller and lighter, a welcome adjustment for anyone tired of their pants being pulled down by a pocketful of the hefty first series coins. The $1 coin, in particular, saw a major change. The large cupro nickel coin was replaced by a smaller, thicker, brass-plated coin. This new dollar coin had an octagonal frame on the inside of its circular rim, a feature designed to help the visually impaired identify it by touch. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about a society that values thoughtful, inclusive design. The designs themselves were beautiful. The 1-cent coin featured the Vanda Miss Joaquim, Singapore's national flower. The 5-cent coin showed the fruit salad plant, or Monstera deliciosa, a popular houseplant. The 10-cent coin had the star jasmine, the 20-cent the calandra, or powder puff flower, and the 50-cent the yellow alamanda. Each design was intricate and lifelike, turning the coins into miniature botanical illustrations. The reverse side remained consistent, with the Singapore coat of arms and the nation's name in 4 languages. This series was a celebration of beauty in everyday life, a reminder of the Garden City ideal every time you paid for something. This series also had a fascinating security feature, especially relevant to an American audience used to relatively simple coin designs. The $1 coin had a latent image on the reverse side. If you tilted the coin under a light, you could see the Singapore coat of arms symbol appear and disappear within the octagon. This was a pretty high-tech feature for a coin in the mid-1980s, designed to prevent counterfeiting. This combination of aesthetic beauty and practical security became a hallmark of Singaporean currency. The coins weren't just pretty, they were smart. They were in circulation for over 25 years, becoming an iconic part of the Singaporean experience. Let's talk about the little guy, the 1-cent coin. For most of its history, Singapore had a 1-cent coin, and for a long time, it was genuinely useful. But as the economy grew and inflation did its thing, the humble 1-cent piece started to become more of a nuisance than a practical tool. By the 1990s, the cost of producing a 1-cent coin, the metal, the minting, the distribution, was actually more than 1 cent. The government was literally losing money by making money. It's the kind of absurd economic paradox that sounds like a sketch, but it was a real problem. So, in 2002, Singapore did something that the United States has been debating for decades. It killed the penny. The Monetary Authority of Singapore simply stopped minting 1-cent coins. They didn't demonetize them. You could still use them if you had them, but they stopped making new ones. To handle the gap, the country implemented a rounding system. The total bill, not individual items, would be rounded to the nearest 5 cents. So a bill of $2.92 would be rounded down to $2.90, and a bill of $2.93 would be rounded up to $2.95. And the amazing thing? Society just adapted. There were no riots, no political firestorms. It was a practical solution to a practical problem, and everyone moved on. This pragmatism is something many Americans might find astonishing. The debate over retiring the US penny has been raging for years, filled with arguments about tradition, the impact on charities, and lobbying from the zinc industry. Singapore just looked at the numbers, made a decision, and ripped off the Band-Aid. It highlights a key difference in political culture. In Singapore, if something is inefficient, it gets fixed. The emotional attachment to the 1-cent coin was secondary to the logical conclusion that it was a waste of resources. It's an approach you can see in many aspects of Singaporean policy, from housing to transportation. Another surprise for Americans is the widespread use of high-denomination coins. For a long time, the US has struggled to get its citizens to use $1 coins, with most people preferring the paper bill. In Singapore, the $1 coin is king. It's used everywhere, for everything. There was never a competing $1 bill after 1987, so the coin became the default. Singaporeans also comfortably use the 50-cent coin, a denomination that has largely vanished from daily American life. This embrace of coins for higher values makes the cash system more efficient and durable, as coins last far longer than paper notes. It's another example of a practical choice that just works. Like any country with a flair for marketing, Singapore loves a good commemorative coin. These are not your everyday pocket change. These are the special editions, the director's cuts, the collector's items. They are minted to celebrate significant anniversaries, major events, or cultural milestones. And Singapore has a lot to celebrate. For a country that's not even 60 years old as of 2025, it is packed in a lot of history. These coins are a way of marking that history in metal, creating valuable keepsakes for collectors and history buffs. One of the most notable early commemorative coins was the $150 gold coin issued in 1969 to mark the 150th anniversary of the founding of modern Singapore by Stamford Raffles. Yes, you read that right, a $150 coin. It was a massive piece of gold, and it set the tone for future commemorative issues. Singapore wasn't afraid to go big. Over the years, they've issued coins for everything: the 25th anniversary of independence, the opening of Changi Airport, the Chinese Zodiac cycle, and even the ASEAN summits held in the country. These often come in beautiful presentation boxes and are made of precious metals like gold and silver. But not all commemorative coins are just for wealthy collectors. Sometimes special versions of circulating coins are released to the public. For instance, to mark the turn of the millennium in 2000, the Monetary Authority of Singapore issued a series of coins with a special year 2000 mint mark. A more recent and widely circulated example was for the 50th anniversary of independence in 2015, or SG50. A whole new set of commemorative notes and coins was launched. The $1 coin for SG50 was bimetallic, with a gold-colored center and a silver-colored ring, and featured a design of the Singapore skyline. These coins were put directly into circulation, so everyone had a chance to get a small shiny piece of the national birthday party. For an American observer, the sheer variety and artistry of these coins can be impressive. While the U.S. Mint has its popular 50-state quarters program and other commemorative issues, Singapore's program feels deeply integrated with its ongoing story of nation-building. The coins are often artistically ambitious and technologically advanced. They've issued coins with color elements, unique shapes, and even embedded crystals. It's a way for the Monetary Authority to show off its technical prowess while also creating objects of national pride. It's money as art, as history, and as a very, very shiny souvenir. In 2013, Singapore rolled out its third and current series of coins, and it was a significant leap forward. After 28 years of flowers, it was time for another change. The new theme was a brilliant reflection of a mature, confident nation, national icons, and landmarks. The coins now depict key elements of Singapore's success story. It's as if the country was saying, "We've shown you our nature and our gardens, now let us show you what we've built." The series also came with a host of new features, including a new bimetallic $1 coin and enhanced security. The designs are a tour of modern Singapore. The 5-cent coin shows the Esplanade, the iconic durian-shaped arts center. The 10-cent coin features a public housing block, a nod to the success of the housing program first hinted at on the very first 1-cent coin. The 20-cent coin displays Changi International Airport, consistently voted the world's best. The 50-cent coin shows the Port of Singapore, one of the busiest in the world, and the $1 coin depicts the Merlion, the city's official mascot, finally making its grand debut on a circulating coin. It's a series that radiates national pride. A key innovation in this series was the use of a multiply-plated steel planche for all denominations. This makes the coins lighter and cheaper to produce than the old alloys. But more importantly, for Americans who are used to coins that set off metal detectors, it gives them electromagnetic properties that are unique to each denomination. This allows modern vending machines and payment kiosks to identify them with incredible accuracy, reducing fraud and errors. The $1 coin is bimetallic, and if you look closely at the Merlion side, the year is engraved in a 3-dimensional, almost holographic effect. It's incredibly cool. Today, as we stand in 2025, these are the coins you'll find in your pocket in Singapore. They represent the culmination of a long journey. From a chaotic mess of foreign silver to a meticulously designed high-tech currency, the story of Singapore's coins is the story of Singapore itself. It's a tale of pragmatism, careful planning, and a deep sense of national identity. Each coin, from the humble 5-cent piece to the bimetallic dollar, is a tiny, metallic testament to how a small island, against all odds, forged its own destiny and created a currency as stable and respected as the nation itself.